Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I'm Michael Sandler, your host on Inspire Nation. If you've been feeling like the ground is shifting beneath your feet, if you sense that we're on the edge of something unprecedented, if you're watching federal agents clash with local authorities and wondering, is this really happening? Then this is the show for you. We're just days away from a solar eclipse that Dr. Michael Lennox has called a trigger point. And today, one of the world's most accurate astrologers is here to reveal what's really coming. He predicted the chaos of 2020 back in 2019. He warned us about the tight squeeze of 2025. And now he's issuing his most urgent warning yet about this eclipse and what follows. This isn't just astrology. It's about whether we're preparing for what he calls the great fracturing that's already begun. So buckle up, because today's conversation might just save your sanity and much, much more. So welcome back to the show, Michael. Are you ready to shine?
I am, but I feel a little pressure. From this last bit of your intro, like somehow I'm going to help today make more comfortable to be in the world at the moment. I don't know if I can do that, but we'll do best to reflect hope and resilience and all the things.
Well, and the word I'm going to go with, and then I'll go into my intro question here, but I'm not asking you to predict, to prognosticate any prognostications. Sanity. I'm asking for help with sanity to prevail. So before we dive right into things, Michael, we're days away from the winter solar eclipse, and you've said something that honestly sent chills down my spine. You called it the shot heard round the world. With what we're seeing in Minnesota, federal agents, state agents literally facing off with your Civil War predictions, what's about to happen, and are we already past the point of no return?
Yeah, we're definitely past the point of no return. And no words that I use will ever not have an astrological corollary, right? Right. So if I say shot heard around the world, I'm thinking Aries, which is the first fire sign of the zodiac. It's like it comes up like a shot, right? It's right after Pisces, the last sign of the zodiac that's all just deep water. And then in that void, out of that, big sort of potential energy, there's a fire of I am. So to me, that's like a shot. What makes this moment, and February in particular, the beginning of what I'm sort of saying is the Civil War, which I think we are bona fide in. It's not war like other centuries because we're in a different world. And so we're in it. But it's Saturn, the planet of reckoning, is about to move into the sign of Aries, the shot fire sign, in 2 days. Then 2 days later, we've got the eclipse. And then like 5-6 days after the eclipse is the moment when Saturn, reckoning, and Neptune, inspiration, ideology, creative connection, intuition and flow, and beliefs and ideologies. And astrology doesn't discern between sides either. I'm a progressive liberal. I have my Neptune, and so do the ICE agents who are murdering American citizens have the belief that's driving them. And I mean, only in this seat, in this kind of a conversation, can I inhabit that in a generous way. But it's important to reckon this idea that it covers everybody, that this fiery shot of Aries receiving Saturn reckoning and Neptune ideology while we're in a kind of crazy, very unstable eclipse, that fire of Aries is why I said it's a shot.
So would you say this is a more unstable eclipse? And I would add to that, while how do I put this? I don't believe in sides on a round planet. I also don't believe in any gun ever used to against any person ever anywhere. I just don't even understand that concept. I was in a high school history class when I raised my hand, and they were talking about why we had to be in World War II, and I'm saying I don't get it. And they're like, what don't you get? I'm like, I don't get war. I don't get killing. And at the same time, I can send love for everybody, no matter what their perspective, because it's all this human journey that we're hurtling through space, and we're learning, growing, expanding. It's just what's the kindest, gentlest way. is this eclipse really a crazy one?
Oh, yes, yes. I would say that just in terms of volume and intensity, if we look back at the last 10 years of eclipses, this one would rise very high to the top, just geometrically. But understand, that's how astrology works, right? It's like when people on social media will say, like, when's it going to stop? I have to hold back not saying something like, what? It's going to stop. Have you looked? Does it look anywhere close to stopping? It, in fact, looks like it's accelerating and that we're at this very unstable moment where we don't quite know one match here or there could create something that we've never seen before, which I think is possible this month. Really think we could see things we've never seen before. And so the astrology and the intensity of the geometry of the eclipse matches the scenario that's out there. And of course, on certain levels, all of that wild amount of transformation, change, and instability is also inside of each one of us at the individual level. So your question about sanity is germane because it's not just the United States that's being, eclipsed and hit with fire. So are we. And I'm delighted that we're going to be having this conversation today, Michael, because I know that within the talk of instability, we're going to speak of creative inspiration. We're going to speak of cultivating joy. We're going to speak of moving forward in the last sort of 6 months of the current eclipse, like astrological, pattern we're in with the North and South Node. There's so much yummy energy for personal expansion, finding your voice and centering yourself in a creative, juicy way. The last full moon was all about that, Leo full moon. So I'm delighted to be able to sit here and go, I'm not going to pull punches about what I feel and see, but I'm also going to make sure that we include all of the delicious, powerful stuff. And then I, as the teacher who sits in the chair, will always add, just make sure that whatever it is you want to create is somehow of service, of help, of assistance to the world.
Thank you. All right. I want to go to America in a minute. I guess I am in America, but I want to go there in just a minute. Before I do that, I was mentioning off air my brain challenges. For those who have followed, I got quite the whack from a truck last summer, and it is still an evolving, growing, healing process, and healing is never linear. Well, maybe sometimes. It isn't for most of us. It is a stair step. It is 2 rungs up. It is 1 rung down, or even a 5 slide down and then come right back up. I'm convinced, though, that actually has a lot to do with astrology, and a lot to do with what we're all experiencing right now. Would you say that's accurate? That right now, for myself, if I put it one way, I'm not allowed to do what I'm not supposed to be, quote, doing. I am going to be redirected with fire, if necessary, to make sure I am where, without judgment, I'm meant to be.
Yes, full stop. Again, the astrology is reflective of what's going on, and the unstable astrology that started at the beginning of 2025 was reflecting your experience too. So let's talk about this like from an individual level. It's the two of us having the conversation, but we're being watched by however many people who also have their individual, separate from everybody else, reflection of chaotic change and the demand to meet the world with service and spiritual practice started last year and goes through the middle of this year. So when you operate as a voice for people, a teacher in the way that you and I do, when it's your lived life through which you teach through your lived life, not through your large brain, right? I teach astrology in a way that people respond to because I live astrology. And so I'm not talking about it as well, this energy could bring you your soulmate and this energy could have you be playing hopscotch, right? It's so your assessment that you were being derailed off of mental load and physical load, sort of being devoted to something that ultimately isn't of service to the world, is sort of said to you, not now, like just get off the bike for a minute. So in my experience, it's the chronic illness, the autoimmune that my body expresses that's got worse and worse since COVID. And the more my exterior life gets tiny, the bigger my external voice gets and my inner landscape in Sarah.
Amen. You've mentioned the eclipse is hitting a critical degree also in relation to the U.S. chart. You've mentioned this for several years. Can you break this down in terms that people understand what part of America's, we'll call it body, is being activated right now?
Great question. And in some ways, it's like a bunch of them, a bunch of sort of areas of consciousness. First and foremost, the moon of this country, the sort of interior, not hidden, like secret hidden, but like the moon in our chart is about the unconscious. So whatever that would correlate, the sort of, well, the sun would be what we think America is, and the moon would be who we really are, which includes how other people in the world think of us. They may hate us, but they don't hate us because we're free. That's a big piece of they hate us because we're a bully. And so that's being activated here. So let me go back to the moon. The eclipse is in Aquarius on top of the Aquarius moon of the country. So this is eclipses have a kind of faded reckoning amplification, but a new moon is a new moon. It just means like a new cycle is starting up. So I have the eclipse starting up a new cycle on the internal, like who we really are with all of our covers pulled. That's interesting. Remember the Pluto return of the United States? Because you and I got together and talked about that back in, I think, you might remember better than I, but 23, I think it was 2023. Pluto moved exactly where it was when the Declaration of Independence was signed, and a Pluto return is what revealed the shadow of America to America. And that's the nature of a Pluto return, because Pluto is the underworld and everything that is hidden. So now that the basement has been opened up, it's like, have we missed anything? Have we caught all of the violence and hatred and division that is held in the unconscious moon of the United States? And guess what? There's more. We just saw evidence of it, and I'm telling you, it's not going to get less of that, right? So when you had killings in Minnesota, whatever you thought of them, that started an acceleration that cannot get smaller, because the astrology dictates that it gets bigger this year.
Is to jump in, and I don't want to derail us, but is that astrology here to serve us? Meaning, okay, the shot heard around the world could also be what just took place with ICE, and at the same time brings up to the surface all the garbage that has to come up to the surface.
Yes, forgive my very long sentences, because the very next thing to say is Uranus, the great awakener, is in an exact trine with the United States Pluto right now. So that means that while we opened up Pandora's box a few years ago, this eclipse says we're putting a Klieg light into the basement of the United States so that no hidden shadow of warringness or violent, disposition is visible and seen. Now, I love America profoundly. And so if there's someone listening who hears me say America is a bully and imagines that means that I don't love this country, it doesn't, I do. And while I certainly don't want to speak ill of any sort of perspective, I do have a kind of sense that if you can't see that America is the bully in the world, I think you're part of the bullying consciousness. Sorry. Jupiter, the planet of
And we love you anyway.
and amplification, is in Cancer, which is right where Venus, Jupiter, the Sun, and Mercury were at the start of the United States. So we are a Cancer country. Cancer is the caretaker, nurturer, mother. We are a Cancer country. Jupiter is right next to it, which means we're a big Cancer country. And what's right next to that? Venus, love, mother. And this idea of come to America and we will care for you is in the astrology. That is not the America that is today. Jupiter amplifying that in this eclipse has the benefit of like inflating the falseness so that the Uranus, bright shining light can see more of the deep shadow that's being revealed. One last thing. The United States has a Chiron, just as we all have a Chiron in our birth chart.
And can you define that for people?
Pardon?
Definition Chiron.
Chiron, asteroid or comet that we grab into our solar system, has a very erratic wandering orbit. So he was named after a wandering mythological creature, Chiron, centaur, teacher, trainer. Chiron is how we know alchemy, magic, synthesis, transformation, lunar cycles, eclipses. That's Chiron's domain. But also the wounds that keep us from being in the magic and the alchemy, right? So both are happening within the consciousness of Chiron, that if you got wounds to clear, got to do that so that you can bring the mastery through the channel that used to be filled with wound. We are in a Chiron return for the United States right now. So Chiron was at 20 degrees of Aries when the US was born, and Chiron is just passing over that point this last few months. So that's activated in the eclipse. So expansion of everything that's wonderful in order to see the whole picture more, devastating look at the ugly corners of the basement while we address the unconscious of the country and trust that we're taking our chironic wound and turning it into some kind of a masterful capacity to heal when the country's ready to do that.
Well, it's interesting. We had this disagreement. I almost want to say I won, but I don't know if I did for the long run. A year and a half ago, and I kept on saying, "Are you hopeful for the year? Are you hopeful for the year? Are you hopeful for the year?" I am eternal hope. and what I'm hearing out of this is actually we are so close to being a country of love, of helping others, of healing others, of supporting others. It's not a big degree shift, although we'll get to civil war in a second, but it's not actually that big degree of a shift or leap of faith for us actually to be that which we portend to be.
Yes. And the broken immigration system is evidence of the sort of divide. In other words, it's working perfectly well to keep us divided. And then if a progressive person says we're supposed to care for the world's everything, they're going to hear, just let them keep coming. It's like, no, lock up the orders, create a better system, and then say, come on, single file, please. Right? It doesn't have to be the cacophonous, everybody can come.
Balance. I like it. So let's go balance civil war. Are we talking about something metaphorical? Are we talking shooting in the streets? Are we talking a consciousness war, a legal war, a war of systems collapsing? What do you believe or feel or see in the charts even?
Well, that shot heard around the world of Saturn and Neptune, which is reflecting all of our experience of like what we have to be responsible to, the delusions and illusions we have to dissolve so that we can meet the demands to do the right thing by virtue of what Saturn wants. So that gathering in Aries is in a loose, what's called trine, triangle harmonious geometry, a trine with the north node of the moon of the country, which, by the way, is in Leo, which means its south node is in Aquarius. And this may be a little heavy geometry for you to understand, everybody, what we mean, but do you get that? That we're moving into, in the second half of the year, a set of eclipses that are opposite where the eclipses were in the first year and a half of the country. So I'm getting a little lost in too much detail, but
and I've got to bookmark that and come back to that because I don't know what the flip side of this coin even means. We'll go there.
Let me just finish up the point of the 0 Aries and the 6-degree Leo North Node. That means over the next few years, Saturn will zip by in his usual fast time, but Neptune, who is now activated with the fires of Aries, will be in this trine with the North Node over the next, say, 5 years, and a sextile with the path, with the South. So a trine needs no help. That means we're easily being led forward if we put the work in where the sextile is, and that's with our past. So Pluto comes and hits the south node of the moon of the United States in the next, 2 years, which means we're reckoning with the past very directly. And then June can tell the story of inching towards, over the next, say, 4 or 5 years, a better outcome of what our purpose is supposed to be. But if we come back to the immediate year of 2026, the general energy of the year is whatever happens in January explodes in February and then rises up like crazy in July 4th, and then hits again in an even bigger rising of energy that's difficult in November, election season. So if you look at what was happening in Minnesota before any of it got juicy, and February is the month where the fire starts, I think we're in bona fide civil war, more murder, more killings. The United States loves to kill people, and there's just more of that every day. And I think you're going to see more random shootings, more school shootings, more, and more challenges in the streets because people are really angry.
Does it bring it back to a place? I keep hearing more, two. The two being that it wakes up the people. For instance, if we let, and I'm not for or against anybody, but if we let the billionaire gazillionaires play out their game, it seems like they're going to some sort of bizarro end game, which I don't understand, because don't you need consumers to consume your stuff? Unless you're putting yourself on an island and barricading yourself up, and that's what you're doing, is getting the funds to build an island. Barring that, it seems like at some point the people wake up to say, I ain't giving it to those guys or whoever. I ain't giving it to that group. Not about I'm not even going to say that word, but about us taking back the power and saying, I get it. Enough of this.
To do with right and left and Republican and Democrat. It's an up and down game of the there's at the top. People are starting to wake up to that. And so that moves the direction of where the population's focus takes us. I want to trust humanity. Actually, no, let me say this. I do trust humanity. I don't trust the level of intelligence that we're operating with in a collective way. Everybody's woken up and everybody's contributing their thoughts and their ideas, not all of which are lofty or helpful. So the cacophony of the collective, it's hard for me to know is there enough slightly more hope for a world that cares for all right now in the States, or not? Because that balance, well, it needs to be 51-49. I don't know where it is.
This brings me back way back when I got a degree in politics, political science, way back when, and we got Hobbes, and we got Locke, and we got, now I'm going Adam Sandler, Thomas Jefferson in here, and a Jeffersonian democracy, because we can't trust the people. So we're going to have an electoral college, because we can't actually trust that somebody's vote will actually be an educated enough person. And if they're not educated enough, they should not have a vote. And at the same time, maybe it's coming to an era of the heart, where it's not about people's cognitive abilities as much as us recognizing that we're all one. As much of a crazy statement as it is to make, to believe that we could do that, I believe that's what we're coming to.
You got me on board. I don't really care how it's run. I just don't want people shot or starved.
Amen.
I want to take care of the poor, because I think we have a responsibility to, and I think we're designed to, cancer country. And we've got to find ways where that can be done without ruining the country or bankrupting the country. And ultimately, we can't because of billionaires, not because of Republicans.
Okay, so I'm going to say something way off topic here, but why not? It's our show. What if there is no such thing as poor? What if that's actually a made-up concept that says, based on your upbringing, based on your education, based on how we determine your contribution is important or not important, you are poor or you are wealthy? But if we each contribute in our own way, your way may be singing, your way may be kicking a stone down a curb, your way may be teaching, which you're completely paid, or oh my God, childcare, paid the least out of anybody anywhere ever. Oh my God. What if you just live, and that living, and that's what we're getting to one way or the other with AI, is we're not going to be able to be a manual labor world anymore. But if there was some sort of, oh my gosh, I'm not going socialist on everything, because these are all terms anyway. But if there's something where everybody was taken care of, there's more than enough. And I believe that we're being set up to be fractured, to be hurt, to be healed, to where we go, no mas, I ain't going to take this anymore. And a whole new world is born.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Have you heard the trope that people, Europeans, white folk, will go to poor countries in Africa and sort of be surprised at how much smiling there is and happiness there is and joy in family gatherings, where this is said like as a remarkable thing? The hubristic response would be, they don't even know they're poor. But I think it speaks to what you're saying, is what is poor? What is poverty? Do you see people in the United States in poverty being loving and smiley? And
maybe it's poverty of the heart we've got going on here.
Right, because it's not about how much money is had. It's about how the country is stacked up, where people are pushed into a territory where they're stuck there and told there's an American dream, but you're just not pulling yourself up from your bootstraps. And so the poverty here has more in it that is not about poverty than what a person of circumstances finds joy in their circumstances and isn't sitting in their life going, why don't I have a bigger house? Which is all we have here, not all we have.
If I go and take Hannah Bear down our dirt road here in Florida, and we've certainly got a whole bunch of reds, and we got blues, and we got black and blues, and we got, black and whites, and you got everything. You go down the road, everybody wants to make sure that she's safe. Everybody will take their dang time. Everybody. I don't care how much of a hurry somebody is in.
See, that's what's happening in the pots of moments in communities, and that gets ignored. And then this narrative rises up that says, oh no, we won't care for you if you're not over here. But in the moments where it counts, people are still, well, we can't let the eclipse energy hit us all on individual levels, where everything that's occurring that's destroying or appearing to destroy structures that are in some energetic trouble, the energy is lots of 60-degree angles, sextiles. Those are fabulous for us. They're productive, creative energy that if we don't feel despairing because we get stuck in looking outside and attached to it, there's incredible energy to create with, to produce new consciousness and projects and artistry.
Completely random, and then we're going to go back into the question here. When I had my brain event a couple weeks ago, I was seeing triangles. Lots of 60s there. It was all triangles.
Well, they're the most harmonious way differing energies can harmonize, right? When it's two, the binary, they can't blend. You have to introduce a third. So it would be like left, right, and taking care of Hanabi, where then it's a trine, not a crash. And that's happening everywhere at the same time.
So let's go from here. You mentioned it before, but I want to get some structure behind us. Can you give us a timeline? If this eclipse is the shot heard around the world, when does this explosion peak? Are we talking weeks, months? You had even mentioned 4 or 5 years. What are key dates to be aware of? And what is this opposite eclipse? And I can guide us through each step of this opposite or eclipse of opposites we're looking at later in the year.
Oh, when the nodes change signs. Well, one of the things that's interesting about sitting in this chair and looking is that when we talked about this year, last year, I certainly understood, and I'm repeating what I said earlier, that anything that rose up in the first month of the year was going to be the kindling on the fire of Neptune and Saturn moving into Aries, right?
We're all replaying current events going, what
right?
took place this month?
Well, I have to tell you, I was shocked at what January brought. Like 100%. I did not see in my bingo card how outrageous the events would be in the external world. But I have to still sort of honor what the arc of the energy is telling. So when I say, like, we can look at these explosions in several different ways, but one of them is right now. Right now, February into March, we've got 2 eclipses, and that makes, the last half of January, all of February, most of March, very challenging energetically. And so I don't know that I could give you a date, because the biggest date is the next week from when this airs. And not to, confuse your folk, it's not like we recorded this today. We've met the week before, or however long ago. So we don't know what the next 2 weeks are going to bring as Saturn and Aries do their thing. But trust me, it's way bigger than what January is, because you've got 2 planets changing signs in January and February. That alone means there's a big change in this calendar month. And because of the sign and the element of that sign, the sign of war and the 0 degrees of it, we're in the first big explosion right now. Then July becomes the sort of the next moment of big peak, because that's when Uranus, the planet of fast change, is now back in an air sign. So when you've got 2 planets in fire signs, Pluto in an air sign, and then the fast change, unstable, revolutionary planet moves out of Taurus, Earth, grounded, stable, and back into unstable Gemini, that's a moment where there's combustion because air and fire make bigger fire, right? So does that mean April and May and June will be quiet? I doubt it. But it does mean that when we're at the celebration of our 250th anniversary, listen, I'll go as far to say much of what will happen will be just celebratory. We'll be celebrating. And you know how Americans like to celebrate. They like to explode things and shoot guns in the air. But if during the spring, the shit hitting the fan politically and in the streets, July's going to be a mess. And then retrogrades soften it for August, September, October, and then November, election season, there's like a repeat of the July explosive energy because the triangle lines up again. So those are the sort of moments to give now, July and November. And I could offer all of you like da-da-da-da-da along the way, but sweetheart, we'd be here for 4 hours.
Does November give us, forgive me, everybody, I don't believe in sides and around planet. I also say that I don't vote for anybody who's for war, which means I'm limited in where I can go with things in the current structure. Does that mean things get, is there then hope for November, or is this a complete restructuring based on the energy we're seeing where there is so much more dismantling that's going to take place?
I don't think we're there yet in the dismantling, if we're going to talk about dismantling coming from a place of reckoning of the past and creating new structure. That's going to take a few years from now when Pluto moves towards the south node of the US chart. The reckoning of our past is always the south node for people as well as countries. What I would say about this particular November and what it sort of generates with this big energy is I would just call it the completion of the, you know, there's always has to be an explosion first. Whenever there's a new building, you either blocking out rock, dynamite the old building or the rock bed or something, and then change can begin. So I would say these 2 years are about that dynamite placement and explosion. And when we get done with November and election season and whatever that brings the country, I think we're done with the dynamite. And I can't really tell you what comes in 28 because I haven't looked.
You got enough going on. All right. Tell us about Black Moon Lilith. And I believe you call it the manhole cover popping off the shadow. Are the shadows, everything that we've discussed, are there other shadows that we're being forced to face that, you know, we've been hiding?
Black Moon Lilith. Black Moon is inside the moon's orbit, so it's connected to the moon. So we relegate the things that the point represents to matters of the unconscious. But because it's inside the orbit, it's not like the unknowable consciousness. It's the stuff that's right there, bubbling under the surface that wants to come out, needs to come out, like shame, personal. Our personal shame and our confusions about like sexuality. I don't mean what sexuality you are confusion. I mean like confusions about like, well, I have a sexuality and it's very confusing. So we want to shove those things down because we don't want to look at them. That's what we sort of call the shadows. We take something and we put it someplace where we're pretending it doesn't exist. So that's why I call it the manhole cover, because the sewer is going to, you know, let its fly, because that's what it's designed to do. Nothing can come up from that point that isn't in the natural right order of a moment when you're supposed to be looking at the bubbly gunk below. And what's happening in this eclipse season is Black Moon Lilith is now in the sign of Sagittarius. Sagittarius is about like truth. What's the higher truth? Even if we know there's no such thing as truth, really, even Sagittarius understands that there's like lots of ways to consider what truth is, but it's still our version of if I seek, I will know more, and that will be of value. It's a wonderful placement for a point that's about letting really lugubrious, challenging, ugly, smelly stuff come up. And then in eclipse season begins what's called a T-square between where Black Moon Lilith is, the South Node, and the North Node, all in 90-degree geometry, which is the geometry of conflict and challenge. So the South Node is our past, the North Node is our future. The shadow that the country is being demanded to look at, like there's no not seeing it. You can close your blinds and not engage with it. But this is also part of like the reckoning of, say, the Pluto return. You can't go back from what we learned about ourselves. And so this T-square makes 2026, starting now in eclipse season, a good like 5 months or so of the shadow of who we are from our past being lifted right there. And what are we going to do about it? North Node square. That's just a matter of like, oh, I didn't know that would be revealed. Oh, that, like, as January became February, every day was like another reveal, another Epstein file, another this, another memo, another. That's all Black Moon Lilith stuff. Billionaires who don't want their sexual predation to be made known, but it cannot be stopped.
As crazy as it sounds, having the damn Epstein files fully revealed, unedited, because those who've been hurt actually want it out, in as far as I can tell, want it out, and so that they can heal as well. That actually can be one of the greatest gifts to mankind. It's crazy to say, but it has been such a predatory, not male, what's the word for it? Patriarchy, that, oh my God, it will shift. I'm hopeful for such a silly, it's not silly, but it sounds silly. And it's the opposite of silly. You get it.
It's actually very simple.
Yes.
If you keep a wound festering, it will not heal. It will only increase its infection possibility. If you open up the bandage and you start cleaning out the pus, and it's not going to feel very good, it's going to smell. But that's when the healing begins.
Amen.
So this is applied to all of us as individuals. And don't be scared of what that, I mean, it's big for the country because the country's big. At the individual level, it's big, but it's just your individual little shadow. Not that our individual shadow is little to us, but this could be as simple as you stub your toe this spring and you stop and have a beautiful healing of that because you didn't know you were stubbing your toe compulsively for 40 years. That's a terrible analogy. I'm just trying to convey that.
Do you know how important your big toe is?
The shadow doesn't have to be life-threatening, but it's going to be revealing at a level perhaps not everybody's prepared for.
Yeah. So then let's there's more I can go into. Like you said, this could be 4 hours. Let's go into the hopeful, or, hope only comes when you have self-agency. If you're told you have no control, you have no hope. You're just watching things playing and you're going, oh, this is a scary poop show. There's my own self-edited version there. So how can we help people find some self-agency, some sovereignty, some hope? Meaning, where do we begin? What do we do? Or, okay, Dr. Michael Lennox says a civil war is coming. How do I keep my family safe?
The most expansive energy that we're hitting in this first eclipse, the solar eclipse is a new moon. So it's the beginning of the cycle. Is we've got this sort of split archetypally where the sun and the moon are in the sign of Aquarius, which is the future, it's innovation, right? We're setting intentions in this eclipse season. This sort of applies, like if you're worried about like protecting and new ways you're going to have to show up for anything in life, Aquarius invented the new, the untried, the radical, right? So you can certainly say, well, I don't know how I'm going to do that, but I know that there's energy right now available to find new, untried, innovative ways to, and then you can fill in the blank. My family, make my life more creative, seal the deal with the project I'm trying to work on. The new moon in Aquarius is always going to be about a radical startup of something potentially electrifying and of service to humanity. Right next to Aquarius is Pisces. That's where the north node of the moon is. The nodes of the moon generate eclipses, and the north node has been in Pisces since the beginning of last year. This is the last eclipse season with the north node in Pisces. Because the north node represents our future, then this moment of intention setting has future power. It is about, how do I establish something brand new and innovative that will carry me to the future that is completely unknown and unknowable? Pisces is the unknowable. That's why it's the spirit planet, right? It's about trusting that which you can't see. And that's why I've been saying for 2 years, get your spiritual practice engaged, because if you don't have that, I don't know how you're going to comfort yourself in the instability. Venus, the planet of love, is exactly conjunct the north node of the moon during the eclipse, and exactly. So that means the energy of the moment has love leading us to the future. That's stunning for us on a personal level. And then just 7 degrees away, close enough to be considered part of the group, is Mercury, mind perceptions. Talk about a solution to chaos and instability. It's a perception game. If you see it as dangerous and awful, there's plenty of evidence to back that up. But if you see it as interesting and curious and willingness to sort of participate in the world that's unfolding, knowing you'll find your voice, your way, Mercury and all of the Pisces folk are trining Jupiter, the planet of expansion, abundance, prosperity in Cancer, a sign that he's exalted in. So certainly from the idea that where we're going is led by the heart and our mind is ready to not really know, this trine with Jupiter is as good as it gets in the world of hope, love, joy, and the possibility of creating more of that in the future. Bona fide, full stop. It's in there.
Thank you. So then what role does, you mentioned a word earlier that I didn't think we'd go today, but maybe it's incredibly important. What importance of intention, or where we place our, I'm going to use the word heart mind here, because to me, I was writing about it this morning. Actually, I was writing about perception, but I was writing about your mind may have an idea where it wants to go, or an image, but the image, if it doesn't have energy in motion, it doesn't mean anything. So we get to have an idea where we want to go, and we have to have the emotion behind it. How important is this right now?
Everything that you just described is crucial, but in the world of intention setting and like doing what you said, lining up an inner experience of like consideration with a powerful moment and turn it into something more than just a random thought. One of the best ways to sort of become a better, and I sort of hate this term, manifester, is you begin to learn how to describe things by how you want them to feel, not what you want them to like look like. I participated in a wedding. I wasn't marrying this couple. I've married many couples, but I was doing like music for some beloveds of mine a bunch of years ago. And their minister didn't talk about the ceremony for months. All they did every time they got together was talk about how they wanted the wedding to feel for their guests. Now, that was one of the best weddings I have ever been to. And part of why is everybody felt so good because the intention was set. Not, I'm creating a fabulous wedding where everybody's there and the food is amazing and the music works out. And it's like details eradicate possibility because they're limiting and confining. And in Pisces, it's all that. It's all feel. So if you want to set powerful intentions using this eclipse energy, decide what you want to focus on, whether it's part of your life or the total of it or your family's experience or you as a citizen. Think about how you want the year or the project or the relationship to feel and set intentions from those ideas, whatever they wind up being expressed as, if you're focusing on feel and not detail.
Thank you. All right. So you're in Minnesota, or forgive me, wherever the next holy event is that we don't know yet. Maybe by the time this airs, it's already come out where that is. And you're there and you actually tune into this for a minute. And oh my God, I can hear the profanity. You two blankety blanky. I've got XYZ going on in my world, and you want me to focus on the inner work right now. I need to be doing XYZ. It's getting real. How do we balance the it's getting real out there with it's getting real, not just in that Whole Foods parking lot, but on the inside?
Well, one thing is know who you are. Like, know, are you the contemplative whose best contribution is to like stay indoors and use your inner life to pray, meditate, to send yummy, good energy, once a day out into the world? If you need a megaphone and a soapbox, buy one. So you see, between those two extremes, everyone's going to fall on a certain continuum. I've been using my voice in an activated way in a manner that if you had told me I would 5 years ago, I would not have believed you. But I am, and I'm not shrinking back from my personality being part of my delivery. And so when I'm talking about only astrology and it's never about conflict, the bigness of my personality is not challenging. Well, they're challenging for people. It's like, I'm just not your teacher. But when I find myself talking about the United States, I can feel the edge in my voice. I can hear my mother's objections to the world in my voice. And so I'm not really sure where I'm going with that, but can you repeat the question?
Certainly. How do, when it's getting so real out there, how do we even take the time, the opportunity, blah, blah, blah?
Okay. I live in Los Angeles. Downtown is right there. I have friends who went to a protest there the other day. My age, women, they stayed an hour. And then they left. They went, they had an experience, they felt contributory, and they left. Is she different than the one who was there before dawn, setting things up, screaming the loudest? No. Helen's Helen, and that person is that person, right? So I'm not going to tell that person, you need to put your spiritual practice first. I'm going to say, go, we need you. Have at it. You don't need to put your spiritual practice first. You need to put your angry voice first. I'm talking, when I say this, I'm talking to people who already have a sense that that's how they live and orient. Not that you couldn't have your spiritual awakening right now and have a very different life from this day on. But not everybody is going to have to do ritual and ceremony the way I do. I live very unmasked in this house, and I'm uncomfortable walking my dog because they're people. But we can do what we do. I'll say activate, but I'm not going to go downtown. I don't leave my house. Why would I suddenly start leaving my house? It's not for me, but that doesn't mean I feel like I'm not helping. I help the way I can. And that's really something we've got to make sure that we convey so that I don't come off like I'm ordering everybody to do it one way.
You've talked about before, maybe you're talking about this time as being a time of dying to narcissism and being reborn to service. What does that mean? How do we serve the individual at the same time as collective and not become sheep?
Leo is the sign of the sun, the center of our solar system in the body. Leo rules the heart. So the shadow of Leo is narcissism, grandiosity, over self-involvement. The opposite sign, Aquarius, where this first new moon is about serving the community only. Aquarius, as the water bearer, was the hero journey trekker. He noticed something was missing. He was led on a journey. He finds water. He brings it back, and disseminates it around, and life begins because water is the necessary for life. So this polarity is about self and service, self and community. I am, we are. So the signs that it's adorable.
You can see it coming.
The moon are in tell us what direction the eclipses are going to happen, because eclipses occur when the sun is near one of the nodes. Because the shadow that is being produced by the sunlight off past the earth is always there. The shadow doesn't pass over us. We pass through it every 6 months. So when the nodes change signs, as they do every year and a half, we move into a different theme about what's the energy that's going to carry us forward, and what's the energy we are sort of contracted to let go of and release. In Pisces, it's been about, my language, put your spiritual practice first, but let's add the fact that if you have anything in your life that requires inspiration, Pisces is about inspiration. So you can think of it as moving towards your spiritual connection, or inspiration as primary. We've been moving away from Virgo energy, sort of over organization, which we are looking to dismantle some structures, right? So if Pisces says we're moving forward in a way that we can't really see, the South Node in Virgo has been, well, I'll start unknitting the threads now, if you don't mind. It's the final eclipse in that polarity. So it's the last sort of opportunity to use the faded energy of a new moon solar eclipse to put inspiration first and get, out of the room where criticism and other stuff.
Thank you. One more question before we go to some things on hope.
Hang on, I want to talk about the narcissism piece.
That's exactly where I was going. Go for it.
I have like 2 or 3 sentences just to wrap it up. So in the middle of the year, before our summertime eclipses, the nodes of the moon change signs. The nodes move backwards. So the North Node will leave Pisces, where we've been, getting ourselves ready with inspiration, and move into Aquarius, the sign of service to humanity. And then the South Node, what we have to move away from is Leo, the overinflated narcissistic energy that says, I'm in the center and you don't count. So when we let go, like 2 weeks ago, we had a beautiful full moon in these archetypes, where the Aquarius sun said, okay, I'm thinking about what's the future? What's the innovation? What's the new thing I want to try? And the Leo full moon said, either get yourself front and center because you haven't been, or calm it the frick down, kid, because your service isn't receivable if your flame is too high. So that's the same principle of the eclipses that start in the second half of the year. The changes are about moving towards service and moving away from so much self-focus that you can't contribute.
It's interesting without, again, going that political word. It's interesting, the whole mirroring of what's going on our inside versus our outside, because it sees both narcissism and growing authoritarianism are rampant, which has to do with, I believe, what's going on in the inside as well.
Yes. And there's an internalization of the United States as narcissism that we all, as citizens, we have to grapple with whether we want to or not, including if the way we grapple with it is we don't ever think about it, right? It does demand your thinking, but it can't pass you by. So even the I'm an American, I love America can be internalized as we're good, you're bad. And that has to stop, or we won't rise up as a nation that's, no longer divided.
How do we heal that on the inside?
Well, I know a lot about healing on the inside because Leo's son, I've spent a lifetime learning humility through humiliation.
Oh no.
Oh, how to answer that question? I don't know. I'm going to come back to excuse my language, because when we are of service, we let go of self, right? That's why service is so fulfilling, because we're pushing through our own myopic self-focus to help another. It always makes us feel better. But in true Leo fashion, one must have great centered confidence and certainty about who you are, so that you can then turn around and serve, right? You can't serve if you're unworthy of being in your own magnificence. So I think that's part of how we do it, is we recognize that we have a contribution, even if it's just to smile at people when you go grocery shopping.
It's interesting. I worked with a lot of youth in iterations of my life before I was a spiritual, I'll put that in quotes, teacher, where I did a lot of coaching work. And one of the things I would tell those who were most challenged is go volunteer, get out of the country, get out of your bubble, go volunteer someplace for 6 months or a year. This country has had this natural disaster. This one's been wiped out by this storm. And they come back completely healed, because the challenge they had turned out they were, I don't even know how to put it, not making light, were made up by the mind, but it gave them such a different perspective. And it seems like that's part of what we as America, we as humanity get to do, is as we go to serve and help others, even at the time where you're going, are you flipping kidding me? Help others right now? I got to batten down the hatches. I got to put up, barricades and stuff.
Right. But you can't choose like the helping, capacity by what you see out there, right? If you hear be of service and then you turn on the news and it's like, well, I can't help that. They're blowing things up thousands of miles away. So I want to be really clear that when we say be of service and find your way, it's, in alignment with who you are and what your life is. So that service can be as simple as every once in a while saying, I hope it gets better, earnestly, and then you're throwing a little. That wouldn't work for me, but I would hate to overwhelm anybody who is seeing what's happening and thinking that serving means you've got to abandon your life and become a mercenary.
Oh gosh, golly. Okay, on that note, you're going from mercenaries here. You are both an astrologer and a dream interpreter. It's a rare combination, and you're the rarest of the bunch, and we love you very, very much. So, are you getting dreams or messages about this moment? Is there something from the dream time, from the collective unconscious, that's trying to come through right now?
I am not, because it's so funny. I've devoted my whole life to dreams and dream interpretation. I was a dream interpreter long before I was an astrologer, and I've published 5 books on the subject because it's my first and primary gift. But I have the most non-exciting dreams for some. I don't lucid dream with any. I've like had 3 lucid dreams in my life. They were epic level lucid dream. Like this moment here was how I felt in that first dream. Like, oh, Michael, I could have died the next day and been like, I saw everything I had to. Yeah, so I don't hear a lot of them. What I notice is that the people who are having big dreams about it, they'll go where that is like really welcome. I have a friend and colleague, Lauren Schneider. She's a big dreamer. She's had dreams that give me like little, because they are so big. And I just don't have that, and I don't attract that. I have a podcast and I interpret dreams every week. Not one of them has been apocalyptic.
I'm so glad you went there with that word. Apocalyptic. Are you hearing of more people having a certain type of dream or archetypal dream at this time? And what can you tell us both about that? And if somebody's having that, what does that mean?
Change is scary. And so there's a lot of ways that dreams will help us sort of move through change by giving us dreams that reflect how unstable that they feel. So apocalyptic dreams are the sort of top dog of dreams that reflect big change that is like landscape altering. At the personal level, this happens all the time when the outside world isn't falling apart, and it signals big moments of change or fears around big moments of change, or the isolation that people assume will happen if they allow this sort of fully authentic person who they are to emerge that could apocalyptically destroy their life. And that's a common dream. So I have not been hearing more apocalyptic dreams. What I've been hearing is more wild and vivid dreaming happening in a way that just based on social media, like I rely on TikTok so much because it's an engagement platform. So I see what people are saying. And that has been wild this past year, is how many people are chiming in. Crazy dreams, wild dreams, vivid dreams, way more than in the past.
What does that mean about where consciousness is at or how humanity is shifting?
Well, it's beneficial. I mean, it's like the wilder, more violent, the more disturbing any dream, the more valuable it is to you.
I want you to repeat that, because for years I have thought of you where if somebody says, I had a nightmare, I'm like, that's awesome.
Yes, so I'll repeat it. The more violent, destructive, frightening, disturbing, and awful a dream is and feels, the more valuable it is for your psyche. We are so afraid of our underbelly, our rage, our shadow, our power even, that we move through our waking life very compartmentalized in a way that helps us like survive. And so big, deep, big feelings, they're not acceptable in the world. Those who freely flaunt them are labeled as problematic. So in dreams, the most important thing we do on a psychic level is let the rages and the fears and the murderous, reactions have a little bit of breathing space. Because if we don't, then we get tripped up by it in our waking life with, us. We do that. So really using an apocalyptic dream coming now when the world does look scarier than it ever has, that apocalyptic dream is helping your psyche be with a part of you that's terrified, so that you can wake up and be alarmed, perhaps, maybe a little scared, but not terrified.
Thank you. What else do we need to know about this year, or you haven't looked into the next year yet? And you typically, from what I understand, maybe I'm wrong, till later in the year when you're going to be teaching about it. But you did mention this is not a short-term process. So what do we need to know? Anything else for the rest of the year, and anything to give us hope for the next few years coming ahead?
in a general way, part of what's hopeful is the astrological reflection of this year and last year of change is all of the outer planets changing signs, which they do when they do, but never all at the same time. And Saturn came along for good measure, bringing that change right here into like boots on the ground energy, because Saturn reflects things that are happening right outside our front door. So the entrance into this new territory is, as you can see, incredibly unstable, very much about destruction of the old and the hopeful possibility of the new. So if the entrance is the worst, rockiest, most disruptive time, as the years pass, now we're just in the new consciousness and we're climbing out of the pit of the dynamite that was blown up this year and last year. There's a thing called an extinction grab, which people are learning about it now, and they're saying
golly,
they
yes.
just figured it out. It's kind of adorable because we.
But many people here don't know what it is, so please tell us.
What it is that anytime something, a consciousness, a person's, plans, anytime something gets pulled out into the direction of destruction, that thing, that person, that movement will double down, will absolutely increase the idea of I have power, I have the stronghold here. It always means the end. Always.
Now, not the end of humanity, let's be perfectly clear.
The end of a structure that didn't work. So now we get, in terms of the United States, certainly we have to reckon with I don't know what's going to happen, but if we don't reinvent us, then we don't have a reinvented future. We just have the fascist nation that is the clear other thing or other possibility if we don't somehow. So because I believe in the resilience of the human race, I have hope that doesn't demand what it might look like. That's why I don't look at 27 before I get there, because I'm not drawn to know what that story is. Part is a personality quirk. I just had never, when I was a kid, I wasn't interested in something that wasn't sort of right here, right now. And so that gives me the opportunity to have great hope about what it can become.
Here's a crazy question. I don't expect you to have any answer, but I'm asking it because it's fun. I don't think this is the first time we've been at the rodeo. And whether we call that Atlantis or God knows what, we've blown ourselves to 2.0, 3.0, whatever. Is there something, do you believe, in the energies of today that is setting us up that this is the time it looks like we actually get through to the other side of this?
Well, I'll start with the idea that humanity has thought that for about 200 years. The minute we started moving a little faster, like with a steam engine, perhaps, the zeitgeist were declaring this is the end of the world. People believe that trains were going to drop women's uteruses out. So I'm
laughing, but I'm sure that if I read it, I will find that.
The idea that we're moving through the end of the world potential has been with us a very, very, very long time in terms of the last couple of centuries. What's different is we now have the capacity to destroy the world. And we've had it for decades and decades and decades. One of the things I say about astrology is that astrology reflects the tension of the ongoing sort of opposites that pull on each other that create life on Earth. It doesn't ever show an end game explosion. It literally is our inner code for knowing that it goes on, that life goes on day to day to day. So I use that idea to just double down on the trusting of humanity not because I think humanity is trustworthy, but because I don't know that I have any other choice. And then I let that help me double down on what I'm committed to in my business, in my credo, in my life, in my teachings, in my service, because that's the best way I know how to help, because I certainly can't help from the outside.
So, speaking of help, where do people go, Michael, to find out more, to find your work, to find your courses? You've got something coming up very soon. I think it was like February 24th. Find all your good stuff.
Okay. MichaelLennox.com is my website. And so everything's available there in terms of my daily Astro Alert, which is a daily subscription to, I write very, very detailed reports about the astrology day to day. I teach a whole bunch of self-investigation and shadow work classes. And I very deliberately started the year with my spiritual practice class just to help people who want to dive onto that. But I also purposely put forgiveness as a class. So I think that's the one that starts on February, and it's just called, Radical Forgiveness, which I love teaching that class. And it's the first class I created in 2020. I looked around and I thought, what's needed? I'm most excited right now, though, about a shift that is going to happen over this year, next year, where I'm just going to be lifting up dreams a little bit more as a focus, because I've got a book coming out in December, which is like the best thing I've ever written. It's called The Beginner's Guide to Dream Interpretation. And because it's of service to the beginner, it fell out of me in 6 weeks. And it was good enough for my publisher to get it on this year's schedule, because it was scheduled for 27. So that's coming out in December. So you'll see a lot of focus on dreams rising up in my world, including my podcast, which is Conscious Embodiment, Astrology and Dreams with Dr. Michael Lennox. I'm not going to change the name of the podcast, but we're going to be putting more dreams and dream interpretation on the podcast. And then in 27, I'll be teaching The Beginner's Guide to Dream Interpretation, as well as all of the astrology and consciousness work and shadow stuff.
Beautiful. And we will have you back for that. We will have you back for dreams. I'm hearing in my head, I don't even know if it's the words dream, dream. All right. So last two questions we can maybe put together. One, what brings you the greatest hope moving forward, if anything? Let's go there. Then we'll give you the last one.
Young people. They are extraordinary new versions of human beings. At least what I'm seeing in the some that I go here locally and watching young people get activated. So when I see young people getting activated and I see people wanting to move into local politics, that gives me hope for the United States, and then hope for us all is just, unfortunately, it's just something that I get to have. Like I wasn't taught how to see things optimistically, but I do. And so I can't tell you to find it, but I do know that when you're honoring things like creativity, and cooking your own food and, cleaning your home and making your bed in the morning become the simple joys of I'm here, I'm taking care of myself. And so I do think that as we distill our needs for how we find joy, we'll know more joy, and service is the best way to get there.
Which brings me to the last question. I just keep hearing music in my head, and it's all of the same genre. Joy to the world, all your boys and girls. Joy to the fishes in the deep blue sea. If we want to be part of the solution, what do we need to do?
Well, not be part of the problem, right? It's like if The outside world is a reflection of the collective inside of us, and that is a law. Then anyone who is bringing anything on a day-to-day basis that contributes destructive energy is not contributing. Now, I'm not talking about squeezing your feelings down. I'm talking about watching where you are still at war with yourself as like an important job to do, because when people in their hearts are no longer at war with themselves and there's enough of them on the planet to tip the balance, and that's not 51%, it's like 1.5%. I mean, there's some thinkers who have thought about this literally. We just need a handful more to create that possibility for world peace. I don't think I'm going to see it in my lifetime, but I'm going to do my best to participate in making a world worth doing that for.
Thank you. I can't forgive me for asking one more last question, but this gets right back to forgiveness. Then how important is self-forgiveness at this time?
It's the most important thing. In some ways, I like to be hyperbolic. It's the most important. It's the only important thing. Simply because what we are holding against ourselves in terms of declaring that we are not worthy, talented, fill in the blank. Self-forgiveness is how we keep hitting ourselves. So forgiving yourself allows freedom of sovereignty. And it just isn't anything better in terms of having a life where you're more integrated and whole and living out loud. But then again, you contribute more forgiveness into the world instead of generating unforgiveness.
Woohoo! Thank you, Michael. This has been beautiful, amazing. It's hard to use these superlatives when it's heavy, but I actually feel a lot lighter now that we just spoke. I don't know if that's the angle of the light behind me, but I feel much lighter. And I would say I feel more hopeful after this talk as well.
Great. I've done my job.
Woohoo! So for everyone out there, this is Michael Sandler saying, be well, have fun, above and beyond all else. Find some self-forgiveness, love yourself up, because being the change you want to be in the world means starting on the inside, and that will reflect outside. And above and beyond all else, shine bright. Woohoo! How does it get any better than this? Michael, that was, I actually feel much better. I really do. At the end of this.
Good. That was fun.
Wow. What a special show with Dr. Michael Lennox. I hope, like me, you're actually feeling better. It was a very heavy show, or very heavy start. To me, a very uplifting ending. How does it get any better than this? And I believe that there is some hope. There is some great opportunity here. If you're like me and you want to find even greater calm, even greater connection at this, we'll call it special time, I have a 5-day free meditation for you. I have a 5-day free meditation for you. You can simply click that link below. It's 5 days to greater calm and connection, completely and totally free. Here's a link to the next amazing show. Love you so much, and keep on shining bright. Woohoo! How does it get any better than this? Your love, your pure love, you come from love. You couldn't be anything other than love, no matter how much you try.